Hey there, my name is Anthony Romano, and I'm going to give you a free keto training plan in this video and walk through every step of it with you and explain why I've made it the way it is. Last thing I'll say is that this is all part of my 60-day keto transformation challenge, which I'm giving out to people. Basically, it's free to enter. You have a good chance of winning prizes, and I've made these plans, so a meal plan and a training plan, and also made these walkthrough videos to accommodate the plan and give you as much fuel as you need to basically make this change in your life and partake in this challenge basically as smoothly as you can. So a couple videos back, I made a video about how I got fat on purpose just to prove that I could lose it all within several months, and I lost 37 pounds in 4 months. I've been doing keto for 7 years, doing bodybuilding for 7 years, actually a little longer, and basically the whole gist of what I'm doing this challenge for is to get more people involved with keto bodybuilding and keto fitness endeavors. You can lose a lot of weight in a healthy and balanced way, improve your health by doing a keto diet. It'll remove your dependence from sugar, remove your dependence on food, and overall it's great for your health. So, in order to spread this, because there's a large fad of the keto diet coming out, I wanted to give a free challenge where you could basically have potential to win some prizes. You can read the details in the description or watch my other video on it. And basically from there, these training plans and meal plans are here to give the most base amount of effort you could put in, some structure. So, let's get into the training plan. So if you want to find this training plan, it's in basically the description, or you can go to my Instagram, AnthonyRomano7, and basically click on my highlights and it's right there. But you can download it, follow along. I'm going to have it right here the whole time. So for the training plan, I have this divided into a 4-day split. Okay, this is not necessarily meaning that you have to do it in 4 days. It's just the most balanced way to do it for the maximum amount of results in the most minimal amount of days per week. So with this, it basically comes out to, you could add an extra days, and let's say you want to train 6 or 7 times a week, you can just repeat these days. But here's basically how the training plan works. So we have day 1 is chest day and triceps, day 2 back and biceps, day 3 shoulders, and day 4 lower body. So this is basically legs, abs, and core, your lower spine, a lot of things with the lower body. And I have this set up, like I said, in the 4-day split because you need to be hitting the compound exercises. This is the most important thing. And this is going to make me talk more about the bodybuilding side of things on my page, which I'm happy to do because I really want to bring a lot of insight to the reason why I use the methods I do and why I think they're so effective. First thing, the first principle I follow with all my training is that even though this isn't necessarily the exact plan I use all the time, it's very similar. And I have different plans for different purposes, but as far as making a big transformation in your life, this is absolutely going to do that because it stresses the compound movements, okay? So in bodybuilding and fitness, if you didn't know, you have isolations and compound movements. So isolations work one muscle group, so they isolate it, and compounds combine multiple, like a compound word, right? It's a compound exercise because it combines multiple groups, multiple joints in one movement. And when you're using compound movements, they create a larger, not only hormone response into, because it's a more, stressful activity, but it also works more, you're able to sustain more weight, more resistance, more overload when you're using compounds than simply isolations. It's going to put less stress on your joints individually, and it's going to create bigger gains, believe it or not. So that's a common bodybuilding principle, and it's one of the most foundational ones. But for a lot of people, especially if you're a new person in the gym, one thing I always see with a lot of people who are, newer to the gym is that they're often doing the guys are all doing bicep curls and the girls are all doing these weird exercises with just attaching their leg to a pulley and stuff. There's a lot of weird isolations going on. And the point is you don't want to be focusing on these isolations. Those are the cherry on top. It's basically like you're not going to build a beautiful cake by just putting a bunch of cherries all over the place. Kind of a weird, crappy, spur-of-the-moment analogy, but if you want to build a cake, you got to start from the ground up and you got to build it by the layers, okay? You have to build up your frame. You have to widen the whole shape first before you do these little cherry picking. So that's why I have this divided into the, I guess, compound movements being stressed. And each of these is going to play a role into expanding your frame, and it's going to play a role into narrowing your waist. So the lower body is going to emphasize that, tightening your core. It's a lot of golden era methods really from the classic bodybuilding days, and I personally am very inspired by a lot of those, and I think they're the most effective. We've kind of lost touch with them nowadays because everybody's trying to focus on, who can, there's all the hype on Instagram fitness and YouTube fitness of who can just be the biggest, who can have the biggest bench at 17. Like there's a lot of who can curl the most at 16, like who, all these things. And the girl is just like, the women are just, it's not too much about the weight for women, but for women it's more so about just who has a nice ass. All right. So we're kind of losing touch with what actually gets you the nicest ass. And what's going to make your whole frame, I'm going to stick with the ass on this one, what's going to make your ass look nicer, okay? It's going to be by affecting your frame, affecting your shape, not just cherry picking each individual muscle isolating, okay? So on to the plan. Chest and triceps, okay? Bench, incline bench, weighted dips, dumbbell pullovers, flies, overhead tricep press, tricep pushdown, tricep kickbacks, burnout with a machine press, and superset with a narrow grip press with light weight, as many reps as you can. So the way I have every single exercise here set up is that you're going to start off with your heaviest weight after you warm up adequately, of course. Start off with the heaviest weight, hit that for around 8 reps. So every time you see on this plan a number of reps, so 8, 10, or 12, or 15, the lower the amount of reps is, implies that it's a heavier weight. And this implies that you can only lift it 8 times. So this is, again, you have to push close to overload, but you don't want to be shooting for 1 rep maxes all the time. 1 rep max is more of a power lifter or strength training, and that's not going to necessarily create the biggest muscle growth or really shaping response that you want in your body and your frame. So that's why I have these things set up so that you have 8, 10, 12, for example. So with the bench press, the incline press, 8, 10, 12, 3 sets. That's set up so that you're using your heaviest weight first, but it's still one that you can press 8 times. If it was something that you could only press 3 times, it would have a much higher risk of injuring yourself, really, because it's a weight that you physically can only lift 3 times. So sometimes I'll push lower to 6 or 5 reps on this plan for various exercises, but it's in moderation, okay? You have it in a careful amount so that it's only for the exercises that are going to have the biggest amount of spread over the muscle groups involved, and you never really want to push below 4 or 5 reps, okay? So that's just an insight here. So with all this, you should minimize the rest time. So when you're hitting that bench press, hit your heaviest set, then drop to your next set, okay? You should be able to hit it 10 times now, so it's a little bit lighter. So you should minimize the rest as much as possible for all of these exercises. I'm serious. That's why there's so many exercises per day, because your rest time should be minimal. Basically, there's also the time under tension principle. So the more tension you're putting your body under in a smaller amount of time is going to create more of a muscle breakdown response, which from there your body will then rebuild. So that's one of the key factors here at play. So the main 3 big chest lifts on this day are going to be bench press, incline press, and weighted dips, okay? They're also going to heavily activate your triceps, which is why I have that combined into that day. So it's also good to combine a compound group with an isolation because they're going to be working hand in hand. So weighted dips, as much as you might not want to do these, you have to do them, okay? If you can't do them weighted, start off with your body weight and then slowly add more with the weight belt. In my opinion, this is one of the lifts that has absolutely improved my bench dramatically. It's improved my other chest lifts ridiculously. And I have a friend who was a bodybuilder, and one of the things, he was New Zealand's best poser. If you're watching this, Marjan, you know who you are. But one of the things that he said that really stuck with me was that the way you win the game of bodybuilding is through angles. This game is all about angles, okay? And you have a bench press, an incline press, and a weighted dips. Those are all 3 different angles completely for your chest to be activated by. And let's say if you just hit the same amount of sets of all those together but only on one angle, right? Basically there's whole other chunks of your chest that wouldn't be activated, and you actually wouldn't be able to build the strength up as much because you're only hitting it from one side and it has to recover from that side. The other parts of your chest that aren't being activated are going to be not as strong. They're going to be weaker. And building up the whole thing, you're only as strong as your weakest link, all right? That's another thing too. If you can build up your upper chest through the incline, right? Building up your incline, then building up your weighted dips. So you got, again, more upper, also more central, a little bit lower. And then you also have your flat bench, which is, you know, not hitting anything particularly high up or particularly low. Sorry if I just slapped the mic there. When you're doing that, if you're only training one of those positions, it's really going to slow down your progress because you want to build up the chest as a whole. Okay, and same with any muscle group. So, dumbbell pullovers. Okay, dumbbell pullovers are massive for expanding your rib cage, and basically you want to do it breathing. There's a great channel on YouTube called Golden Era Bookworm. He's a great guy. I've been following his stuff for a long time, and he talks about the rib box expansion. So this is basically by you breathe in dramatically as you're lifting the weight over your head, and you're going to hold it, and then as you bring it back over, so this is a dumbbell pullover, Google a picture of it, basically you're going to breathe out, and this is going to help expand your rib cage, expand your frame. And this is what you want, especially if you're a man, because it's going to create more of that V-taper illusion, which is what you definitely want to go for, whether you're bulking or cutting on this transformation plan. Additionally, now I'm moving on to some of the isolations. So the flies, slight isolations in moderation, higher rep ranges because it's lighter weight. You don't want to overload too much on one joint exercises. That's how people get injured. Tricep push down, again, slight compound, but mostly isolation. That's why it has higher rep ranges. Tricep kickbacks are one of my favorite isolations, basically. And again, you're not going too heavy on these. The rep range is 10 to 12, 12. So in general, you shouldn't be using your 4 rep max on this exercise. It could hurt your shoulder and your tricep. So then at the end, burnout with a machine press superset. So, but the burnouts at the end of this day, after you've already had minimal rest, as minimal as you could between every exercise, should basically dramatically create a lot of tension in your muscles. But at the same time, it's not going to be at the point where you should be injuring yourself because you weren't using 3 rep maxes on many of these exercises. If you wanted to push for 4 or 5, even your bench press, if you wanted to push for a 5 or 6 rep max, you could do that. Just I wouldn't recommend bringing it lower. Okay, so day 2, back and biceps. This is scheduled right after one of your pushing days, so the next pushing day, shoulders, is going to be separate from chest by a couple days. Especially if you're doing this over the course of 7 days, it's very optimal distribution of these days. So back exercise, all right? Low rows, I like to start off with the low row just to warm up the lower back, the spine more. In general, you're going to be following the same rep scheme and the same resting scheme. So like I said before, you're going to be, if it says 8 reps, that implies the maximum amount of times you could pull the weight is 8 times. So I'm not going to explain that much more in this video, and you should hopefully understand these plans going forward. Low rows, weighted pull-ups, huge exercise for improving your back lifts and widening you up again. Like I've said with the weighted dips, I don't know why, but I feel like ever since I started doing more weighted pull-up exercises or weighted exercise overall, it's really expanded my frame and it increased the strength of my lifts. It's funny because a lot of people, if you have a weak point in any sort of major movement for a muscle group, it's almost like if you're not as big as you want to be, it's strength. Muscle is a byproduct of strength. So if your strength isn't adequate, if you can lat pull large amounts of weight, but you can't, do 10 pull-ups, it's a muscular imbalance, and you can fix that and fix your physique by building those up. So weighted pull-ups, huge. If you can't do them with weight, start off with your body weight, increase slowly over time. So barbell row and assisted dips. I don't know why I wrote assisted dips. I meant assisted pull-ups here. Assisted pull-ups is what I meant for that one. And basically it's going to be facilitating a burnout after this weighted pull-up day. So barbell row. Barbell row is also one of the staples of back day. You're going to want to include that. It's pretty straightforward. Lat pull, dumbbell bicep curl, barbell curl, decent amount of isolations thrown in here, and the Zottman curl. So the Zottman curl is the one where you basically, another golden era movement where you start off outside and you're going to basically move over as you're curling, bring it down. The whole gist of that is you're going to be stretching the bicep as you're basically extending it. So it's going to activate it in a different area, really balance out the thickness and roundness of your arm. Then burn out with a machine pull and superset with light pre-shirt curl as many reps as possible. So with that, burnout is pretty self-explanatory, and then you're going to also have a burnout with the isolations, however, on a slightly more of a isolating angle, and again, with a weight that isn't going to tear your bicep, all right? Day 3, shoulders. So you got face pulls to warm up, and you're going to also do this with a lighter weight. You always want to warm up the back of your shoulder on shoulder day. You always want to warm up the rear delt, is what people call it. This will strengthen your rotator cuff in your shoulder, and basically the front of your shoulder, it can only be as strong as the back of your shoulder. So in general, if you were ever concerned about building big shoulders, you have to be able to press heavy weight. And in order to press heavy weight, the back of your shoulder and the joints in there have to be strong. So face pulls, which are, those ones, and like within the cage, shoulder dumbbell press, shoulder barbell press, which pretty self-explanatory. And then we have lightweight Alan Steven lateral raise. So again, thank you, Golden Era Body Bookworm. I did find the Alan Steven lateral raise from his videos, but I was familiar with Alan Steven before, like Silver Age Bodybuilder. And basically, the whole thing is you see a lot of guys doing these side laterals in the gym, right? People doing the side lateral, and the whole gist is that's not the full range of your motion. Excuse my dog. The full range of your motion is actually up here and then up to the top, right? So my whole shoulder's motion is up this way. And what you want to do is you want to get to the top and then kind of turn your arm inward, because that's going to, again, work your rotator cuff, twisting your arm inside. Always using light weight for these exercises, but you want to improve the range of motion. And that, I think, has actually really improved my bench and helped prevent a lot of injury for me. So it's funny because this will improve a lot of your pressing movements, especially the Alan Steven lateral raise. I really encourage you to go all the way up and sometimes twist it inside. So that's also going to be key. I personally really love that shoulder exercise, and I never go a shoulder session without it. So even if you don't want to do the face pulls and all these other things, the lateral raise, the Alan Steven lateral raise is huge. Now, rear delt flies, another back of the shoulder strengthener, and machine press burnout, self-explanatory. And then hang from a bar for 3 sets of around a minute. Basically, this is for strengthening your shoulder. I know that I heard once on Joe Rogan that one of the top shoulder doctors in the world recommend hanging from a bar. I looked more into it, and from there I've been doing it for a long time. Haven't really had any shoulder problems, thankfully. And in general, our shoulders were never really meant to be impinged, okay? They were never really meant to be in a position that's unnatural. So even hanging from a bar is perfectly natural for our shoulder's position. A lot of times with shoulder injuries, it's because the shoulder is in an unnatural position and there's a certain load on it. And if you can get your body used to hanging from a bar just flat, it's also going to increase like your grip and other things like that. But it's just very helpful for stretching the shoulder and increasing the strength at that position. So I think that goes hand in hand with the Alan Steven lateral raise, but it's very important. I do it every single time. And that's also why I feel like getting stronger on those pull-ups is better for your shoulders. Last day is day 4, lower body. So, back squat. Okay, back squat. I don't like doing too many back squats because for women it's probably good because it's helpful to increase the size of your hips. And, you want to build up the back of your legs and glutes. Front squat, if you're a man, you definitely want to emphasize the front squat more. And there's one thing that if you learn from, I've watched a lot of old Elliot Hulse videos back in the day when he was doing a lot of lifting training, and the front squat is a great way to assess if you have any muscular imbalances. So if you have any problems doing a front squat, it's basically will tell you exactly where your imbalances are. And as far as Golden Era Bodybuilding is concerned, front squat is going to greatly improve your quads, all right, your front of your leg. And if you're going for a really impressive physique, you want the waist to be narrower, the V taper with your upper body, and your legs to also be more of the X frame. So increasing the quads is very important. This goes hand in hand with the hack squat. Hack squat is basically the leg press for the front squat version. And with that, it's again going to be building up the front of your legs, increasing more power in the front of your leg. Deadlift. Again, lower back, abs. All these squat exercises are going to be working your abs dramatically and much more than doing like 100 sit-ups. But you can burn out with that at the end. So deadlift is definitely something where you could go a little bit heavier. The human body is made to lift weight up straight from the floor as long as you know how to do a deadlift properly. So Don't come back to me if you don't know how to do a deadlift properly and hurt yourself. Do it properly. Google it. There's plenty of good sources out there. Sissy squat. This is very golden era movement. It's very popular by Vince Gironda. I have other videos on my channel about him. Basically, you're going to, squat and you kind of go down a little bit, and it looks weird, okay? Google it. But you basically lean forward a little bit, and then you go down in like sort of this, like you contract your body. In general, it's also very helpful for the movement in your mobility in your hip flexors, preventing injury in that sense, and also building up the front of your quad and the back of your body, so your ass. Hip thrusts, very important for the glutes. Also, it can be a way to basically isolate the glutes without, putting as much stress on your hips and your knees. So that's also a good way if you're, trying to squeeze that in. Pun heavily intended. Light lunges, this is more of a mobility thing, getting the lactic acid, flushing it out of your body after a big leg day. I like doing that with light weights. You can put weights on and then eventually take them off. 10, 10, 12, again, not too heavy. And then 10 minutes yoga stretches, and you can combine some ab movements in there as well without any weights. You don't want to be doing too many weighted ab exercises that's going to build up your gut, but you can definitely do some and isolate which parts of your abs are the weakest. So, example, if your right side's a little weaker, like mine is, then you can basically do a little bit more weighted exercises on that side. If your lower abs are weaker, you can do a little bit more weighted exercises with the lower ab exercises. You can basically burn out a little bit with, ab rolling or non-weighted body weight ab exercises here. So, basically the yoga stretches, Google some. This is just mainly to help your body recover. I personally enjoy them, and they're very helpful. So, this has been the free keto training plan walkthrough. Okay, I walked through every single step, explained every single reason why every exercise is in there, and in general, if you did want to learn more about this type of stuff, if you want me to explain more of my training methods, and they're rooted a lot in golden era training, especially with my nutrition, kind of follows that way because I talk a lot about the keto and how it's linked to a lot of the classic golden era training. But yeah, let me know if you'd like to talk about that more. Enter my contest, the rules are in the description. Follow my Instagram, and in general, click subscribe and notification bell, all that stuff. And thank you for watching. My name is Anthony Romano. Leave me a comment. Peace.